Hello, you're listening to the Otaku Spirit Animecast. My name is Andrew, and I'm joined here with Chris.
Yo.
Today's episode is the Waifu and Husbando effect episode thing, because Chris made an outline, and it's not as crazy as his usual outlines. Usually he has, walls of text, and it's like a novel rather than being an outline, but we're here. We're going to do it. Technically our second take on this, because our first take had a little bit of a technical problem, but we'll manage. We'll manage somehow. So, Chris, are you excited to do this again?
No, Chris sucks at recording stuff. We have learned this very, very difficultly.
It's a little different not being able to be there with him to yell at him when he's too low or adjust his gain if he's too high. Like, Chris, you got to take the reins now. It's all you. That's fine. It's fine. We'll manage. We'll manage somehow. People are very understanding. We appreciate people being patient for our weekly episodes. But yeah, it is what it is. But yes, no, the Husbando and Waifu effect. I'm gonna say Husbando first this time. That way, all the Fujoshi out there feel included.
Sure, we can do that. we can revamp the entire thing based on the Husbando effect. We can do that.
Yeah, there you go. So what's this outline for?
The story behind this outline was I was digging through at some point. Andrew had posted an outline involving how to make an anime, and I went ballistic on this outline because I absolutely loved the idea, and I just went crazy. And this outline kind of shifted to the side with other things that we were talking about. But one in particular section that I had added, or Andrew had started and I kind of went nuts on, was the waifu, kind of how to make a waifu. And I went nuts on it. And so that was kind of the start of this outline. I do have one other outline that both me and Andrew have looked at, and I kind of really want to do it, but it's nuclear. Anything involving what that is will cause hurt feelings all around. So neither of us really want to touch that hot potato anytime soon. But this one was an easy one. And so when Andrew had said, "Do you have any outlines?" I'm like, I don't know. I'll look. And I found this, and I was like, I could do this, and I just went crazy on it. So I filled it out a whole bunch, and basically it's kind of traits involving waifus and husbands and how they kind of fit into anime. So it should be a lot of fun. So
yeah, so the context is like if a creator is making a series or something like that, typically, I mean, especially Chris likes to chime on it a lot, is a nice thing about anime is when you have characters that you are drawn to. It might not be so much, it doesn't even have to be so much the idea that they have some deep story. It's just the context of molding a character that will kind of appeal to a certain market, that they will attach this character, and yeah, as the title would lead you to believe, title them as their waifu or husbando, the character that they will, go through thick and thin for, buy all their merch, all that kind of stuff involved with that particular character. And it does have an appeal to draw somebody to a show. I've had several times where we're watching a show and I'm just like, this season we have the Last Dungeon Boonies. The thing that I said in the first impressions, I haven't gotten back to the show yet, was that there wasn't that character for me. That character that, even if everything else isn't really going well, I'll still watch it because of this one character, is that character that has that much of an appeal, or that has that, personality that you really enjoy.
Did you get to meet the Saber lady yet?
Mm-mm.
You need to hurry up and catch up on it.
There's too many very important shows.
I don't know if she'll save it for you, but she's probably the Andrew character as far as I can tell. She's just not in it enough for you. She won't be in it enough for you. I think that's what I told you last time.
Yeah, we'll see.
So why do anime creators add love interests? When it comes down to it, it's pretty much for money. I mean, you can make all the excuses in the world. When it comes down to it, it's money. What it does is it adds something that kind of adds another level, because what ends up happening, especially with like a harem, is you'll have a group of love interests, and each one of them will have something that they kind of target a certain audience. And the more harem members, the more traits that your audience can have. I.e., like we were talking about with in the Boonies. Andrew was saying there's no character to bring me in. And I'm like, well, there is this one character that might be there for you, but even I acknowledge she's not in the show enough to hold him into it. And that's what we're kind of talking about right there, is the more characters you have, the more relatability you can have, the more traits that your audience, that can bring more audience members in. There's going to be, and we'll talk about all these different characters, tsunderes. There's a lot of people who like tsunderes. They made an entire show about the idea of twin tails, and that's that moe, and why those people are drawn to those types of shows, because of twin tails. And I admit there is a market for twin tails.
It does make you kind of wonder. I've for some reason I'm blank. Oh, Negima. You can imagine with Negima, it's like one of those shows where he's like, "All right, I got all of them covered. Like, I got an entire classroom. I'm gonna get one of every single type. Like, it's like ammunition." And all these shows are kind of going, "Well, I only want it to be like a little love triangle. My story, little love triangle. So I'll have like this character, and then I'll have like the side character that's this type of character. So at least those two will have a lot of attention." And they're like, "But people really want this type of character. I'll make them a side character that you just know is not going to be the pick, but they'll still like them because they'll be around a lot." But no, Negima, they're like, "I'm going to cover every single one of them. I'm going to have an entire classroom of archetypes."
Yeah, he even got a robot at some point, didn't he?
Yes, he got a robot too. Like I said, every single one of them covered. I don't think he had a Yandere, though. He might have had it in one of the seasons.
I think it was in the latter. It was one of those that was added at the end. Well, at least between two seasons, it was added as a she definitely wasn't in the harem per se. So yeah. So
yeah. But I mean, that's the idea, is you want to have these characters that are going to have that appeal. So like you said, you can make money. That's like and I don't really necessarily think it's so much like at base level, but I do think at some point they do have that in mind of like, eventually I'm going to sell merchandise for my characters, or the company's going to sell merchandise. I would even see a lot of cases where a mangaka or a writer is going to be in front of their producer and they're like, right now, I mean, you have to imagine back in the day when tsundere got really big, the publishers were going, "Can you add a tsundere to your cast?" Okay, I'll add a tsundere to my cast.
Yeah, and then the last point I have on this is, of course, for story, because when it comes down to it, you need characters for your story.
Yeah, I mean that, and the aspect of that there is. Even though we do joke about the idea of archetypes in shows and how easy they are technically easy to create stories out of, because there's a baseline. We talked about that several times. The idea of an archetype or a trope is essentially there to create a baseline that's easy to set up because people are familiar with it. But at the same time, we also say the best writers are the ones that can take that and make it into something and not necessarily make it rely on it.
Right. So no matter how you look at it, people can hate on the addition of cute girls or cute boys, or however you want to put it. And if you stopped and asked one of them, look, and you got to catch them off guard if you do this. Who's your favorite waifu, or who's your waifu or husbando? And they would probably 99%, maybe there's that one person who in the world, I'm sure this one person is coming out of the woodworks to tell me I don't have one, but I almost guarantee you everybody, if they are an anime fan of some sort, no matter if they go, I only follow the Golden Age. Well, your waifu and husbando is probably in the Golden Age. Don't lie. They probably have a waifu. It's an undeniable fact.
Probably Rei.
It's probably Rei, yeah.
It's probably Rei Ayanami.
So there is no it's absolutely undeniable that these characters have an effect on the show. They do it. It's a part of what makes it's. I'm not going to say it's what makes anime because we've gone over why do you love anime, and that's what we believe it makes an anime. But when it comes down to it, there's no denying what characters have as far as how they affect the industry, the animes themselves. I mean, like I said, for money, the story, all those different things. You can almost, to a point, you can pick any show. It doesn't matter what show it is, and you can find the monetized character. And this is one of those things that's kind of really complicated to point out, and yet at the same time, it's the most simplest thing in the world. You can look at Spice and Wolf, and it's so easy to pick up Holo. Holo is absolutely the monetized character of Spice and Wolf. You don't even have to know anything about it. I can just put a picture in front of you with Holo and Lawrence, and you can go, that's the monetized character. It's
obviously Lawrence. It's obviously Lawrence.
Well, yeah, he is kind of cute in this kind of disheveled, kind of frumpy way. He kind of works
smart.
For that.
He's got that little bit of ruggedness. He's got a little bit of a peach fuzz on his chin.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Now, other shows, it's a little bit more difficult. I mean, and there is this kind of okay, let's go with Mushishi. Mushishi is a little bit more difficult with Ginkgo. Now, Ginkgo is obviously the monetized character there, but he fits a different.
I totally see Ginkgo as like whoever. When they designed Ginkgo, they just got done seeing one of those old school Marlboro ads with like the cool cowboy guy smoking.
He is, and he is
totally a Marlboro man.
He is. He's such a cool character, and that is exactly what his appeal is. Yes, you can almost like Andrew. Andrew was kind of joking, and I was kind of joking along with him, but Lawrence is kind of the same thing. He's a Ginkgo, but with Holo right next to him, Holo takes the stage easily. But when it comes down to it, there is this kind of rugged, cool character that is kind of that it's a niche, but it works. And Ginkgo embodies that to a T. I mean, from the big old box. I mean, you don't care about what the box is. You think it looks cool on Ginkgo. So it's really funny how, when you stop and think about it, how these characters come off when you think about them in a monetized setting. Now, there is other shows that will absolutely blow you out of the water with monetized characters. Naruto is one of those. I mean, you could tick off the boxes on all of the shonens, and every one of them have just gobs and gobs and gobs of sold characters. But Naruto is an absolute easy one. I mean, you have from the title characters of Naruto and Boruto, you can go down to the secondary characters like Hinata and Sakura or Edgelord, Edgelord's big brother, and Gaara, because he's not actually an Edgelord, but so it doesn't matter. You can list off a name off of the Naruto cast, and they're probably monetized in some way, shape, or form.
Except for Sasuke, he's kind of like a character that didn't really take off.
You mean Edgelord and Edgelord's big brother?
No.
You don't think that they were monetized? I don't even know who you're
talking about. I don't even know who you're talking about.
They weren't monetized in any way, shape, or form. No, I'm with you, Andrew.
Did not have a fandom of girls wanting edgelords.
And you can go down the list, even farther down the list of the lesser known characters. Even they were monetized to a certain degree. I mean, the Akatsuki or whatever the cloud outfit guys wouldn't even. I couldn't tell you half of their names. I mean, I know that a couple of them kind of popped up into the main limelight, but even a lot of them were monetized really well.
And that's kind of one of those. Yeah, Rock.
How was Rock Lee the character who is the whole point of his joke was that he is like, the everyman that is based on
Bruce Lee,
almost a chuny version of Bruce Lee,
yeah.
That's his entire shtick, and yet he still got monetized.
It's such a good character, though. He had a good story.
He is. He's an awesome character. I love him.
But then again, that goes the idea of, well, one, them having so much time to work with, whereas most things don't really have that much time to work with, but also the idea that he just, it is a character that exceeds what it was, which it was a Bruce Lee knockoff, but it was more than that. But that it is kind of technically the sad thing for a lot of this stuff. I mean, minus the blowing up shonen shows that are like, they're aimed more for children, so they have a huger audience versus, something that is more adult leaning that doesn't have as big of a viewing audience. Not really having that difference of how much the stuff is actually marketed and sold. Because I've said several times where, if you have a show like, let's say, Quintessential Quintuplets, that's a show you're probably easily going to find a figure or something of the character you like, because they're going to mass produce every one of those girls in their own way, probably making, if there's a Good Smile figure, they're going to have a Good Smile figure for every single one of them eventually. Versus a show like, that's more adult, that has those characters that aren't as well published. Say for instance, a show that is, again, more adult, but has like a male character that, you don't really see it so much being a husbando, because the show is more geared towards the male audience. You're probably not going to get much merch for that character, and that is a troubling thing. Like I said, minus the Hero Academias, minus the the Narutos and the Bleaches and all those you'll often have merchandise for the male characters. But there's most of the shows that aren't, like I said, has that majority younger audience. When you search for anything merchandise for them, all you're gonna find is the female characters, and that is kind of a bummer. I've had that several times where I have I bought a figure for a show. Like, let me easy example I have right in front of me. Gate. I have a Rory Mercury figure, just to rub it in Chris's face again. I'm probably never, ever going to have that same company, which I think it was Kotobukiya, make a figure for the protagonist. Because nobody cares about him. The show is aimed for people that want Rory Mercury. They want all the other girls in that show on their shelf. So there's a slight upset in the idea that you might like a particular character that they're probably not even planning on marketing that much. That's why it's always sad to be a huge fan of the character that. Okay, let me word this differently. If you're that person, be thankful, because you don't make the mistake I make, where I choose to waifu the one character that is overly marketed, hence Saber, and I could have gone for the character that is not as marketed, say Sakura or something.
So moving on, we're going to go to what I have deemed and I fully acknowledge I am not the foremost authority on anything. This is Chris's opinion, and I am me. Take me or leave me. I have called it the circle of main archetypes, and we will go ahead and talk about their appeal in different ways. If it needs to be said, these are not gender specific. You can talk about them from the male version to the female version.
I've started a problem here.
Huh?
All because I brought up putting Husbando first. Now Chris is trying to be inclusive.
Oh no! I wrote this in, and we talked about this last week. It was part of the thing. I just wanted
even
to
though
get
he has
it
an
out
entire
there,
section just for the Fujoshis, he's trying to be inclusive.
So these are both ways. So you can have a Yandere male, you can have a Yandere female. It doesn't matter. They're in both genres. On a side note, these are generalizations. If it's a well-written character, like Andrew had mentioned a little while ago, if it's a well-written character, it will not necessarily stick to these guidelines. They will move around a lot.
They will be dynamic.
Yeah, they will be dynamic, and they will change. So, first one, not in any particular order. I said this last time, and Andrew poked at me. It does technically, for some odd reason, fit along with my preferences, mostly because I leaned towards this side of the, if you want to call it, circle. The first one being absolutely not in any way, shape, or form my favorite in any way, the Yanderes, or basically the socially awkward characters, or the bookworms. We have them down as they're the ones that are kind of a little bit too innocent. They're the ones who need a lot of protection. They are the secret pervs in a lot of case. The ones who read too much, and the reason why they read too much is because they're secretly fujoshis, and so they really, really, really love the books where the guys get together or whatever have you. So there's a lot of things involved in the Yandere kind of archetypes. They just a lot of fun involved with them.
Yeah, and they usually, when they get to that secret side of Fujoshi, Andrew shuts down pretty quickly. Would you say it's kind of the vulnerable one? They seem like they're vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because right on the top of my head right now, because I just got done getting caught up on it, was bottom tiered character Tomazaki, and it has a character in that show called Rika, and that's her thing. And it's surprisingly, I don't really necessarily. I don't think Yandere is the type that I'm against, just because I think mine's more for the soulless dolls that I don't like, and I think I often try to connect the two of these. So Yandere I'm perfectly fine with, and especially for the fact that they're usually pretty quiet and very cute. And I think that, like a character like Rika, and bottom tier character, she has that aspect of like the character you just want to sit and read a book with, the kind that's very quiet, very to themselves, so to speak. So I think she does this type of character, male or female, does technically have an appeal, and I think that appeal, that marketability for a lot of people, is that particular character that is, and nothing negative meant here, quiet, to themselves, not loud, not overly pushy about things. The character that you could just hang out with and just relax with, kind of archetype.
Something else to be added in is that these are also kind of the social butterfly characters. So they're the ones that tend to be the ones that somebody will save, and that's the one of the tropes that is really, really well, or really used in the Western hemisphere, where we have people who do the bookworm that takes off the glasses, and suddenly their
hair starts, the fan hits their hair and the hair starts flying up, and there's a glowing light behind them. Yeah.
So it's obviously something that is kind of well known, is this archetype of the bookworm that breaks out and becomes the really amazing beautiful woman or beautiful guy or really gorgeous guy, however you want to put it.
Like the recent example is "Are You the Only One That Loves Me?" Was it that the show where the girl that was in the library and suddenly she opens up her shirt and suddenly she's big chested and lets her hair down and takes her glasses off and suddenly she's this gorgeous woman.
So a couple of examples that I went ahead and put down here. I've got absolutely in no way, shape, or form my favorite Yandere of all time, Hinata from Naruto. Take no hints from me putting Hinata in this outline multiple times. That means in no way, shape, or form that she's one of my favorite characters. I really adore the fact that through a lot of it, she's the kind of the silent love interest that is always there. And yes, she had that underdog thing going like over and over and over through the entire show, which of course, for whatever daggum reason, hits me. Like I've said before, I'm a sucker for underdogs, and Hinata had that in spades. We have Shiori from Shiomiya, or The World God Only Knows, or I'm sorry, that's her last name, or her family name, from The World God Only Knows. It's been a long time since I watched that, but I do remember really, really adoring that particular episode. But I loved a lot of the episodes in that show. So, excellent Yandere. Well, that was the entire point of the show, was talking about tropes and archetypes. So, have fun. Any others that you can think of, Andy?
Yeah, as we talked about recently, Miku from Quintessential Quintuplets, I would assume that she's in the Yandere market. And one of my favorite characters too. So, and Rika from Bottom Tier, another recent example.
You like a Yandere? You like two Yanderes? What's going on with you?
What I'm saying is, what I'm saying is, I don't necessarily think that we have really connected that properly. I think most of my dislikes is in soulless dolls, not necessarily Yanderes. I don't think I have a problem with Yanderes. I think I usually have a problem with soulless dolls.
It is when you start to kind of, especially once you start when you start realizing what the archetypes are and how they work, you will start to see a distinction. One of the things that a lot of people do, and this is not a jab at Andrew. This is a generalized statement that a lot of people will do this, and if you can start to separate, because there is a difference between a kudere, a soulless doll, and a Yandere. And yet, for whatever reason, a lot of these get kind of really mixed up in the list because they are distinct separates. I think it's really more kudere that you don't like. Soulless doll gets mixed in with kudere even more than Yandere does. Mostly because, and this goes right into talking about what the soulless doll is. Soulless doll, the best way to explain it is they are the robotic characters. They are not necessarily robots. They are robotic characters. The best way to...
being soulless. They're having like no technical life or personality inside of them.
Exactly. That's the way to explain it the best way. They are the only characters that literally have cut off their emotions completely. And this is a very, very big distinction to explain to this. They and with their emotions usually will go personality. So they may still have a quote unquote fake personality or a something to kind of work around it, but when it comes down to it, they have no soul, i.e. they have no emotions, and they have no personality, or they have a fake personality. And it's really, really, that is a very important distinction. why these are so popular, and I say so popular mostly in surface level at best, because they're not really a popular grouping or archetype. They are not used very often. And a lot of cases, they'll just flat out make them into a robot. It's not a very, very popular character. Just it's one more category that kind of needs to happen. The reason why they are there is mostly because they're the character that you can pretty much get away with murder. You can do whatever you want to this character because they are technically a doll of some sort. They don't care. They'll just go with whatever. They are the ultimate submissive character.
And that was kind of what we were. That's kind of what we were getting into last time. Is there's that little bit. This is technically in that area of we're going to talk about this stuff, and it's not going to be that we agree with it or that we're 100% on board with it, but it is technically what it is. It is what is marketed for. And yeah, the idea that of who is a soulless doll marketed to, it's going to be the people that fetish on the idea of having this particular love interest that will let them do anything. Completely passive, 100% passive, like no barriers of entry.
They are, when it comes down to it, they are the robot or the perfect wife. They are the one that will do whatever you wish. I don't really have a lot more that I can add to these because when it comes down to it, they don't have anything. That's their point. Now, this is really going to be difficult because when I go into the examples, I'm specifically pointing out characters because it's really, really hard to truly find one. And I tried because Chi is a perfect example. Chi is a robot. Chi is a soulless doll for generally a vast portion of the show. I should probably decide that. I don't want to bump into her spoiler, but it's pretty much obvious from the get-go where they're going with the entire show. And that's from Chobits. She is literally a robot, so she's a perfect example of this. The other two, it's really hard to find one that is truly a soulless doll that is not at some point breaking off from being a soulless doll. So my next two examples.
That's the difficulty is it. I mean, unless it's like a doofy harem where they're not going to really try to develop characters much. I mean, something like I said, not that it's a bad thing, but with things like Negima or something like that, I guess technically they don't really want that character to break from that because that's what they're selling it on. But in most cases, if there's any kind of soulless doll character anywhere close to the front lines of the show itself, they want to eventually have that point that they break them out of it. You know, Key Metal Idol. We had Alice from Genki Doll is a recent example for me. It's just these characters that are, technically they're full on soulless doll, but eventually they want them to become. I guess it's a fascination with the concept of Pinocchio. You think this idea of becoming a real boy or becoming a real girl?
Yeah, in a lot of cases,
Claire from Claymore. Eventually, they want them to break out of that mold.
Yeah, and that's I think why a lot of people get mixed up with Kudere, because Kudere is very, very similar in a lot of respects, and I will get into that. Let me point out these two examples real quick. I have Gata from Naruto, and like I said, he is the absolute soulless doll when you first meet him, and then yes, he does break when they do their big battle, and then he becomes a more of a kudere. You can see that in his latter parts. He does honestly care, and you can see that in a lot of the things that he does later on. Violet Evergarden. The funny story behind this one is I was trying to remember, and I don't know if this is actually the character I was thinking of, but she does do exactly what we were talking about. I messaged Andrew and I said, who was the show that had a character, a girl that was pretending to be a robot, but she actually wasn't a robot, and it went through an entire thing until they fixed her, and then she came. And Andrew brought up Violet Evergarden, which fits into what I was talking about.
He literally said like a couple seasons ago, I'm like, Chris, that's like 2018, and she never claimed to be a robot or was acting like a robot. We thought she was a robot based on the PV and her robotic hands and all that kind of stuff.
And like I said, I don't think this is the one that I was thinking of, but so if somebody does pop up, yeah, it probably is the one that you're talking about. I'm almost positive that Violet Evergarden is not the one I was talking about, but she fits
it's
technically.
A similar concept. Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, I'm just a tool. I'm a robot. I'm a robot. I'm just a tool. That type of idea is similar to the idea of being a robot. Is just that idea that this is what I was designed to do. This is my only purpose. And in often cases, that releases them to having, like you said, completely closed off emotion and personality.
Yeah.
All these other things get in the way of what I'm supposed to do.
Exactly. So taking that into consideration, both of these characters literally at some point have a breakthrough and they go out of their soulless doll mode and into being a real human or whatever have you. So
a real boy.
Yeah. So when it comes down to it, yes, they are soulless doll. They are not soulless doll as a whole. Their archetype, they break that mold. And that's kind of the point. That's why it's really, really difficult to find true soulless dolls. They're very difficult. Kudere. Now, this is the one that is a little bit more obvious. And the problem is, for whatever reason, people will look at kuderes and they will say, oh, that's a soulless doll. No, these are very, very different characters. And when you actually start breaking down what, especially when you start seeing there is a difference in because they do have a personality. The personality is the joke. Kuderes tend to be very, very snarky. When you see one, they are usually joking about something that usually comes off as let me keep going. They are too knowledgeable. Is a lot of their problem. When it comes down to it, they're so cool and confident. They put off this I am in control of this entire situation. And I know what you really want out of me. And I will tease you to death about what I know you want from me. And that is why they come off as so, to me, so funny. And I really, really love them. Is they are the characters that will taunt you and say, I know what you want. I have control over what you want. And I will tease you about that. But here's the trick to them. When it comes down to it, they are secretly insecure in a lot of cases. The problem is they have so much control over the situation that also becomes their weakness. And if you push them to the point where they realize or reevaluate what they are doing, that's usually the way to break a kudere per se.
This list that I just looked up for kudere has Piccolo on it. I'm like, no, I thought Piccolo was a tsundere.
Yeah, tsundere really works with Piccolo for me, but I can see where if you put him up next to a couple of the other characters, yeah, he would technically look like the kudere out of the group, per se, yeah, I guess.
I guess technically, I'm not sure exactly where my issue is with the kudere. I think it's probably more for the snarky aspect, and I think my problem is that mostly, in most cases, it seems like it turns more as a snappy thing. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I don't think that I necessarily have an issue with kudere in general. I guess it's just not. It's one of those ones where it's like I don't hate it, but I don't love it. at the same time.
Well, they have the deadpan humor, and I don't think that I think that that's really where I mean I love the deadpan humor, and I'm guessing that's as far as I can tell that's the humor that you don't much care for. I'm not saying that you don't. I'm saying that it seems like that's probably where it is. Where you'll say. I'll say that it was absolutely hilarious. I'm rolling on the floor, and I like the girl from Hinako. That is to me the quintessential kudere. Somebody who literally, I mean, yes, she breaks easily. She is one of the she is the weakest of the kuderes as far as she's broken all over the place because what's his face makes her realize her insecurities really fast. And he's constantly making her go off on him. But her humor is absolutely the deadpan. I have control over the situation in most all the situations.
I'll see a lot of people will designate that Tomoyo is a kudere, and she's my favorite character in Clannad. A lot of people list out Saber as being kudere, and she's technically one of my number one characters, so I don't know. I guess it just I guess my problem more is in the idea of that breakout moment for the kudere character. You know, that point in which they become more than just the kudere is really the defining point for me.
Yeah, I would. Saber is such a strange one to kind of designate. I could see her as a kudere. I put her down in the list in a different section. I see out of that particular cast, I would put, is her name Sakura? The girl that I really like. Sakura. I know she falls into a different into the next category when it comes down to it, but that's more because we know of the new route that we're going down, that she was not in that route before, or she never showed that per se in any of the other routes. So yes, I know that she goes into Yandere territory.
She just never acted on it.
Right, exactly. So that's the problem with her is now. Yes, we are now. We're getting her true story, and now we're seeing what she really is. But before then, she was kind of more to. I wouldn't even put. I would put her more in the Dandere territory when it comes down to it, because Sakura is. She is so awkward, socially awkward. When she's actually confronted, she breaks really easy. Is really what it comes down to it. But no, I just flat out put her in Dandere territory until now, and she's in Yandere's area. So
she's in Dere skis.
We're not talking about another character this season. That's funny because the only other one that I can think of is probably Ilya. And I would probably put her in kudere territory, but she breaks really fast too. She's very teasing.
Yeah, she's way outwardly emotional.
Yeah, she doesn't hide her emotions very well to be a kudere, but she does show a lot of the traits as far as being in control of the situation, being cool and confident, teasing. So yeah, she would to a point, like Andrew was saying. But then again, remember, a lot of the problem with this is that they are, if it's a well-written character, you may be able to see a archetype, but not necessarily fit in every way, shape, or form. Because a lot of people would put Ilya as Soulless Doll, and I absolutely would not put her as Soulless Doll.
No, never.
So
I mean, there was breaking points for her where she did seem like that, but that was not her personality.
Yeah. The examples that I have for kudere is my favorite easily is going to be Tobichi from Day Live or Origami. I think that she is absolutely the quintessential kudere. I love her to death. Rei from Evangelion is another one that's really difficult to find because a lot of people will put Rei as Solastal. I disagree wholeheartedly. I think she is kudere, and even that is very difficult to put her in because when you stop and actually take the time to consider the characters in Evangelion, none of them fit in their traits. And I think that's more because it's back towards the beginning before we really started delving into what you would consider archetypes, and they became more defined.
The birthing point.
This type of
character. The birthing point.
Mm-hmm. Even though you can see kuderes and tsundere, before then, it's just... I think that he is a really great writer, and a lot of these characters, he was kind of toying with the with tropes and that stuff, but it wasn't enough that we had defined them really well yet.
Yeah.
So the next section, unless you want to add any other examples, I'm going to go on to the next section.
Well, we still technically haven't hit on the topic point for kudere yet, which is what is the market? What is the market it's shooting for? Just somebody that likes that combativeness of somebody, that person they can push?
I do believe that's a lot of it. It's the snarky. I can't think of anything else. Yes, they are a bit submissive, but like I said, the second that they realize what's happening around them, that's when they will... that's when they become insecure and they start to push back.
You last time you were kind of bringing up the kowtowing anime where the kudere was kind of like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever, if that's what you want to look at, and then the moment she realizes that she's upset about it.
Yeah, and that's a lot of it, and Origami is does that a lot too, where she will absolutely, she can't take what she dishes out in any way, shape, or form, and that's what makes it so why I love these characters so much is they will dish it out. They can't take it whatsoever. They really quickly. I just looked at one of my characters off of Arpeggio and the Blue Steel, and there's a lot of Solastal type characters in there. The core of the battleship type shows always have the Solastal in it. It was like that was a common theme with those. When I was trying to think of that one anime that was back when we were kids on television, I forget what it was called, but yeah. It was a total side tangent. Sorry about that.
Yeah, the problem with Origami is they eventually screwed up her character, so she's null and void.
Well, that's
bad writing.
You're throwing me off.
Don't talk bad about my character when I'm doing an outline, Andrew.
When it comes down to it, she would tease the main character in a lot of cases, and when he would push back on her, it would throw her off, and that's the one thing that I do truly love about kuderes is the but then in a lot of cases, when you stop and think about a character, when do you really fall in love with them? It's not usually when you see their first face, which is in a lot of cases what we end up pointing out in a lot of these cases. Like when we get to tsundere, you'll start to see the same trend. Is you're just first meeting these characters. The moment that when we say break, is really when they go into their dere mode, and this is a joke that's popped out in this particular season with Jobless Reincarnation, where even the main character in that one, where Andrew, I think that you pointed out this in our last time we tried to do this, where you can't buy dere. Yes, that is so true. What these characters do is they will go through their main part. This is like, for this one is Ku, or the cool and confident, the character that is snarky, is cool, is in control, is too knowledgeable. That is the Ku. When you get the break, which is what we talk about in a lot of cases, you get the other side of them. This is the real treasure, and we'll talk about that in a couple of other cases a little bit later on down the road.
Yep. So the next basically one, just basically people that like that idea of having a character that is probably teasable. I think that's probably a big thing of it, is the teasable.
Yeah. The next one is going to be the Yandere, and there is a lot involved in this character, and I get teased a lot about loving the yanderes, and I will admit, I do have a soft spot for yanderes. I don't know that I necessarily say that I like all of them, but mostly because I don't much care for... There's parts of them that I don't like, and that is
the yawn part?
The yawn part. But there is... It's a really, really difficult line to kind of, because it's so blurry. Yanderes, what I love about yanderes is their absolute devotion. They are the absolute perfection in the fact that they are absolutely devoted. And I believe, cutting off Andrew ahead of time, I think that is their ultimate selling point, is their absolute devotion. What you want is the character that will do anything to be with you. They are stalkers on crack. So the downside to them is you're playing with fire with them, because they are, and I think that this is a lot of the reason why people are very careful about using them in stories. And this is another one of those characters that doesn't get used a lot. I point them up as the exact opposite to the Solastal. They are the opposing ends of them of each other. They where Solastal has no emotion, Yandere has too much emotion. And they... No, I don't have them as opposites. I have Genki as the opposite of a Solastal. That's beside the point. They are the right mix of emotion and danger in a lot of cases, or aggression. They will not be separated from their quote unquote love interest. Whatever is they love, they will be there with it. Period. That goes into what I said with the absolute devotion. A couple of examples that I have for this is, of course, Yunogasai. You can't really have a Yandere list without having Yunogasai. She is, I wouldn't say the original Yandere, but she is the one that broke through and
popularized
it. Yeah, she was the one that kind of popularized it and made it a thing, if you want to call it that. Hold on. The other one that I have is lesser known. She came in a couple of seasons ago, and that is Sato Matsuzaka, or basically the main girl from Happy Sugar Life, who trapped poor Tama into a room and kept her away from everybody.
It's a good thing. The world's evil.
Yes, the world is evil, and Tama needs to be protected. But yeah, that's really where I stand on yanderes. I really do love them. I can think of from Day Day Live, Kurumi. I absolutely love her. So you can go down the list of different yanderes, and I probably love them in some way, shape, or form. There's one from, what is that? Shiki? Is it that what the name of it is? I really, really want to watch that show, and because I've heard she is almost a quintessential yandere there as well. But it's a dark show, and I don't know that I want to watch it right now.
Misa from Death Note.
Yes, she was an excellent one as well.
And that's the problem, is like, because of course we're going to joke about the idea that the yandere is the archetype that those that markets to think they want, but they don't really want. I guess it's more the idea that they do. I think most people like the idea of somebody that's just so devoted to them, somebody that just loves them without very much else on their mind. They people want to be wanted, and I think that's what the yandere kind of appeals to, is that, you know, that insane amount of devotion for the character, or for them in the case of it being marketed to them. It's just the problem that always comes is there is that line that the more extreme yanderes that are the most popular cross, that we don't realize we don't want it. It is that insane amount of jealousy. The jealousy is always the difficult thing, and I think that's why a lot of writers don't put them into their shows. Yeah, they put characters into their shows that are different types of personalities that will be jealous towards the main character, but they don't act on it to the point where Yan is, which is that crazy, that sick love. And that's where it gets to the point of being too conflicting to the rest of the characters and the show in general. It's hard to not have, if you have the characters come into the room, it would be out of character for the yandere not to just completely cling on to the main character and glare at everything else, and that becomes too dominating to the scene.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think that the bigger yanderes stand out so much. Yunagasai works because it's in a deathmatch show. It works. It's perfectly fine that she goes around and kills people. Misa, it works for that show because she's trying to help her beloved, this person that helped her so much in her life that she wants to devote everything to. That makes sense there. She's willing to do that. It doesn't make sense in a lot of other cases.
It is very difficult to. It's even more harder to write it. And I will acknowledge what it, because like I've pointed out a few times, I have a hard time with characters that when their logic, I can't follow their logic. Yunagasai, I kind of had a hard time. I did like her, but I had a hard time with her character logic until the end. And that's what made that show for me, was knowing the end. And what did that do? It made Yunagasai's logic make sense for me. And that was one of the biggest frustrations I had with the first part of the show. I was able to get past that frustration because I liked a lot of the characters. But I will admit Yunagasai's story or character logic did not make sense at first. Why was she so devoted to this guy after only meeting him one time? And that was her whole shtick. She became absolutely devoted to him from one meeting, and it made no sense to me.
Just you went with it because you like that character type.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I fully acknowledge I had a frustration with it, and I admit because the second one I have in my list from Happy Sugar Life, I liked a lot of her character writing up until the end, where they did the opposite, where they went completely ballistic, and it was like none of your what you're doing here makes any sense. I don't even remember what it was that they were doing, but I remember the ending made me mad.
That made perfect sense to me. Well, that's just me.
Because crazy, and that's a lot of it. And
no,
I think
it wasn't because crazy. It was literally this person did so much for me, and I reciprocated.
Like I said, I don't remember. I don't want to know.
You say you don't like it. You say you don't like it, but you don't know what it is.
I remember the ending made me mad. I don't remember why.
And now you're spreading nonsense because now you're telling people that it doesn't make any sense, and yet you don't remember what it is. It could be wrong.
I do acknowledge her as a yandere, and I think that she was an excellent yandere. I'll even acknowledge that there is other yanderes in that story that I don't want to point at because that would be spoilery, and I think that one actually was written well. Anyway, tsundere is the next one in our list, and this one is the one that I kind of poke at Andrew and say that he's in love with this particular character, and I acknowledge why, and I do love tsunderes. I won't deny that I do love them. They have been, actually, if I was to say how I feel about them, they're the one that kind of grew on me over time. Mostly because, like I had mentioned before, the break moment. I think that tsunderes make the best ones that when they break, they are the most, I love them the most. They are the ones that are kind of the, for lack of a better term, they're the ones that are tough with a heart of gold. Most of the time when you see a tsundere, they're beating the crap out of somebody for whatever reason. They are the when we make the joke every once in a while, me and Andrew have gone, they're the characters that do that. You will tend to hear that from a tsundere in some way, shape, or form. I got a kick out of the last episode of Jobless Reincarnation, and I wanted to text Andrew so bad. I just seen probably the best tsundere break that I've ever seen in my life because it was so left field and I got such a kick out of it. And I'm not going to say who, but it was phenomenal. It was left field. I wasn't expecting it, and it was great. And that character for the last 4 episodes has been going hump over and over and over again.
Yeah, they kind of opened her up that way, but that again, it goes back to the idea of will they, of course, go beyond that is always the question with the archetype.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
I guess technically my like for the tsundere really kind of kicked off with the Ryukujima surge. I really did kind of ride that bandwagon when that was all happening, going into Familiar of Zero, Shakugan no Shana, Toradora, that surge of this one Seiyu that was pulling off this archetype so well that every company wanted to hire her just for the tsundere characters. And I think the big appeal is always that idea of that breaking point. And it's funny because I don't typically like the violent side of the tsundere. That's I like the cold and the as the term kind of goes for the sun part of tsundere is the idea of like this cold and turning away kind of aspect. That cold nature is that fun part of it. I don't like the hyper violent. I've never technically have. I kind of went along with it with Shakugan no Shana and Familiar Zero. I just kind of went with it. I didn't really necessarily hate it at the time, but over time, technically that nature did rub me the wrong way. But it is the ultimate payoff character. It is the character that is the overly violent, that eventually does break, blushes, and doesn't know what to do with themselves. And I think that is a huge appeal.
Yeah, they are. I absolutely love her voices, and most all of her characters that she's voiced. It has usually in some way, shape, or form been an excellent character. Yeah, there's misses along the ways. I fully acknowledge that. The one that I have at the top of my example list is Taiga from Toradora. She is absolutely the quintessential. If I said you're only alive for one more tsundere, Taiga, she's just the best. I've loved her from the moment that I seen her. There's something about that palm top Taiga that I just love, and I adore her to death. And it's funny when you stop and think about, when you go back and you go, dang, if you go back and watch just an episode or two of the first couple of episodes of Toradora, she is dang aggressive, and she is knocking some heads. And
well, I guess the reason why that worked out is because he technically deserved it. It's the violence is okay as long as it's deserved.
I don't know. He's a cool guy. He was a cool guy.
There is just an aspect to the whole, guys walking down and suddenly the girl just suddenly punched him in the face. That there is a little bit too much.
I mean, wasn't it that he was a delinquent, but he wasn't really a delinquent. He had his name was his name was Ryu, which works out to dragon or something like that.
He had the eyes.
So the eyes. That was the other thing, and everybody automatically assumed that he was this delinquent. Hence, i.e., tiger and dragon. His whole shtick was that he was a delinquent and that they had to fight each other, and of course she wasn't going to back down because she's the Pomtok type. I love this show.
He made fun of her when they first encountered each other.
Did he tease her?
He's like, Pomtok tyre? Oh, I get it now.
Yeah, I got you.
Her shortness, yeah.
The other one
funny, I just realized I kind of want to see a tsundere Aoyuki. I think she'd pull off a tsundere really good. I mean, Tamaki from Fire Force, I guess you can say that she's kind of tsundere, but I don't really put her in that category. I think she'd pull off a tsundere well.
I want to see Aoyuki as a true yandere character. I mean, yes, she did well with the military girl, but I don't know that necessarily scratched that yandere itch the way I wanted it. Was
Mio a tsundere? Mio from the god one, the guy where the gamer that was a god that was doing was conquering all the characters.
From
World of God Only Knows. Yes. Sorry. I'll have to look into her, maybe rewatch it. But no, I think she'd be an excellent. But yeah, I don't know. I think she's done a yandere character, has she not? I mean, Madoka's technically a yandere. Madoka Magica.
Aoyuki.
Yeah, I guess no. I'm looking through the list. And I don't see anything true yandere.
Yeah, I don't know that I would necessarily put her, but she was the doll? Was she the doll? Or was she the one that they traded places or something like that?
Mio, yeah, I'm trying to remember.
It was the body switch. She was the body switch.
Yeah, I think her episode was pretty short, wasn't it? There was quite a few of the girls they just kind of rushed through.
I think it was the OVA or something like that.
Yeah, it's one of those characters that kind of rushed through.
The other one I've got down as the example is, of course, Asuka Langley from Evangelion, and like me and Andrew have gone back and forth before, she does not fit in, because Evangelion, like we said before, he writes really well, and Asuka does not really fit very well in the tsundere. She fits more into tsundere than Rei fits into kudere, but it is what it is. Most people place her as the tsundere, and I think that she is one of the true tsunderes, the best ones that you can name, if you want to call her a tsundere. If that makes sense.
Now, Keima actually describes Mio as tsundere, so I might have to check that out again and see. Watch Aoyuki as a tsundere. Oh. Yeah, so, it's a solid archetype, and like I said, I think it really does come down to the payoff. And that's the funniest thing, because I think there is a market for people that like that, that girl that will push push and push and push rather than just that kind of pull and push and pull kind of aspect. But yeah, it is kind of similar to the Yandere, where it's something people claim they want, a girl that'll drop kick them and then eventually blush, but I'm not sure. I think they all like the ending part more than the struggle to that payoff.
Yeah, if
we could buy Dere and the Tsundere, we would.
It is. I mean, even when I had the last thing I've got down here, and I don't think I actually said it, is these are the characters that are the most dishonest with their feelings. They will say they don't want this, but it is a tight line to draw, because they're very, very difficult characters to work with, I'm sure. But they are the characters, when it comes down to it, they're the most dishonest with their feelings. They say they don't want this, but they do want it, or they say they do want it and they don't actually want it. They're just all over the place with how they actually express their feelings versus how they actually feel about their feelings.
How they feel about their feelings.
Yes, how they feel about their feelings.
That's the quote that, people. Chris, 2021. People feel when they feel.
Yep. So, the next one I've got on the list is going to be Genki.
Chris's favorite.
These are, obviously, they're the exact opposite of my more favorite characters. So, yeah, it's obviously... they are the go-getters. These are the ones who will tend to be a little bit harder to get down. They are, even in the worst situations, they're the ones that are going, we can do it. We can overcome this obstacle. They hide their frustrations really, really, really well. Now, the funny thing about that is, yes, while they hide it the best, they're also the most exaggerated. So, what I mean by that is, these guys are hard cheerful. They're also really hard frustrated. So, when they get depressed, they get really, really, really depressed. Now, don't get me wrong, they will come back very fast, but all their emotions are over exaggerated, period. All of them. But they just tend to be more cheerful all the time. They're go, go, go all the time. So take that into consideration. So if you see the Genki character and suddenly they're like super, super depressed, there's a reason for it. All their emotions are exaggerated when it comes down to it. I
think that breaking point is probably the point in which they find their low. Their attribute, if you want to get in the idea of putting it in the same terms as something like a Dead archetype, is that breaking point is them finding their low, because they're typically always trying to hide something. Yeah, there's a lot of characters that, if you're just looking at a cute girl doing cute things show, it's probably just going to be a character that's just super hyper Genki, but they'll eventually have that low point.
Yeah, and that's actually a good distinction that I didn't even really think of, that you kind of pointed out. When do you break a soulless doll? When you make them show their emotions. When do you break a Genki? When you make it show their weakness. It's their opposite. Whatever their opposite is, that's usually what it is that you're trying to get out of them. A Yandere, how do you make them kind of break, if you want to say it? Yandere is probably the easiest one to break, I'm sure. A lot of people will say that, but technically what you do is you make them feel confident.
Tsundere, when they put a bandage on the bruise on your face.
Yeah, when you make them show some kind of good towards you. A kudere, when you make them feel insecure or unconfident. It's the funniest thing when you stop and think about it. And each one of these, how do you break them? You make them do their opposite. the next one that I'm going into, the Bokuko, or the perfect wife, the Ojo. How do you break them? The Bokuko is the tomboy, the military nut, the fighter, the samurai, the athlete, the health nut. They can they're the thing that they're what most loved for is that they can protect you. How do you make them break? You make them feel insecure about their abilities. That's the opposite of what they are. They're secure in their ability to fight. They're secure in them being a samurai. You make them feel like make them show their feminine side for this particular situation, make them feel insecure. That's how you break the Bokuko. Each one of them, their dere side is usually their opposite in some way, shape, or form. It's funny that you mentioned that. I'm sorry I got on this random tangent, but it is a very, very interesting.
You're just trying to get away from Genkis because you don't like talking about Genkis. We know.
I did have in here, I said the go-getter. There is a different kind of side to them, and this is kind of a weird one to kind of explain. If they are the main character, they will be the go-getter. When they are not the main character, and this is a very, very big distinction between the two, if they're not the main character, they will be the perfect support character. So, if you have a person who is, if the main protagonist is a Yandere or something like that, and they have a side character who is the Genki, they will be the one dragging the Yandere along the road. Now, it's hard to see them as not the main character because their presence is just like the tsundere. It's hard not to see a tsundere as the main character because they will, if they come onto the screen, they are usually the ones that are absolutely dominating everything that's going on in the screen. And that's something that goes into some of the stuff that I have later when I actually talk about tops and bottoms is the characters who have the most presence tend to be the more aggressive-ish type characters. And tsundere, Genki, and this is why the when I talk about a circle, this is what I'm talking about as far as how they go around the circle. Tsunderes are on the more tsunderes, Genkis. That's all the more energetic, aggression, high emotion type characters. That's what all these are is. And not necessarily aggression. When you go to aggression, you're going along the yanderes, and then the Solus doll is the least aggressive. So that's how those are kind of give and take on that side. So
I think the marketability of a Genki is similar to a lot of the other ones, where I think it's there's a subset of people that are going to obviously like the extremes, but I think for most cases, most people like that kind of middle ground where they don't quite get to that point where they're too much. Nobody wants to get kicked. Well, a lot of people don't want to get kicked across the face, but they do like their tsundere characters. And I think Genki is the same way where, and I do agree with Chris to an extent, where there's some characters that are just way too over the top Genki and they become, come off as obnoxious. The character from Prisma Ilia is the prime example. That girl literally is flying off the walls, literally, is climbing up walls on a sugar high. But I think in most cases, the thing that draws me personally to the Genki characters, and I think is a lot of its appeal, is that go-getter. I think somebody that is supportive, somebody that you don't even have to ask twice. They're just like, what do you need done? I'll help you with it. That support is what makes them so great. That go-getter attitude is what makes them so great. Yatsuba here is a great example for this season. She's a character that you can rely on. She always wants to do things for other people, often to a negative effect, and where they don't really pay attention to themselves at the same time. But in most cases, it is that attitude, I think, that makes them so appealing to a lot of people. I would even put Mimimi in that example as well. Is bottom tier character Tomazaki. which is another character that's more hyper and happy and energetic, because that's essentially what the Genki is. Genki is good health, basically. And that's what it always seemed like. They're always overly energetic because they have a lot of that energy and life to them. And a lot of people would probably put Yu Igahama in that category as well. She's always seems to be the positive, energetic character in most of the scenes that she's in, unless she's being heartbroken, which that story does.
Yeah, they are. I tend to not like them mostly because they're, like I said, they tend to dominate the scene too much, and that's where I get frustrated with them. Not necessarily. I ended up kind of. It's a very difficult thing to say. Mako from Kill la Kill. I have a love-hate thing for her. I ended up starting to like her. She ended up growing on me.
You brought it up last time we recorded this, and you had to bring it up again just because you know how much it infuriated me.
She kind of grew on me towards the end of the show. I did not like her. I still, if you ask me on any particular day, I may give you a different answer. So, I probably hated on her the entire episode last time we talked about her. This time I'm admitting that she kind of grew on me, but if you ask me tomorrow, I'll probably hate her again. She is one that I have a love-hate relationship with. In some cases, I think she's absolutely hilarious. In other cases, I absolutely despise how much she dominates everything. Everything in the entire world stops for her because she's Mako. And that's her entire shtick. Now, one that I do like Andrew had mentioned, I put her in a different category, but I think she is an excellent Genki character. I think she's more cheerful, and so that's why I put her in a different category. So I don't see her as high energy so much as just cheerful. However, Chika from Fujiwara from Kaguya-sama, she is an excellent, fine dining when it comes to Genki. She is cheerful.
Dude, what?
She is excellent. She is perfect.
Fine dining.
Perfect.
Fine dining.
She is
I don't think I'm ever let that one go.
She is an excellent Genki. I really, really did. I do enjoy her and how she knows exactly what to say to cheer up a room. She is excellent with her humor when it comes to her teasing. She's just an excellent Genki character.
That's the kind of the thing that I enjoy a lot about the Genki characters too, is that there's a lot of stories that have that character that is very happy and energetic, and in a lot of cases when they get to that punchline where you see where they've pulled people out of darkness, that always sells me. And that was something that, like, again, kind of was the that final nail in that coffin that I'm gonna love this character was with Minami and bottom tier character Tomazaki having that moment where they finally kind of show off that, oh, this is why this character likes her so much, is because she pulled them out of that darkness. And that's something that I always really enjoy with a lot of these shows, or a lot of these characters.
I really got to get caught up on that show.
You do,
because I was really enjoying Mimi. I like Tama. I just wish that they would use her more. I really, really, and I'm hoping that that's going to change very soon. So, but
well, they're intertwined,
right? The next one I've got is, like I said, Bokuko, and I've already pretty much, because of my random rant, I already pretty much hit a lot of this. They're the tomboy characters. You can. They're a little bit harder to find, but they are usually, you'll always see them in a certain specific way. I do say this distinctly separating because there is another character that tends the samurai-ish characters tend to go into the next category a lot. Like I said, none of these are archetypes. they are not, if they're well written, they will never fit perfectly in any of these. I have to say it again because the Shrine Maiden is one that you tend to see a lot with the samurai characters. So they tend to be interchangeable, and Shrine Maidens I put in kind of the next category. So if you're automatically hearing me say samurai and you're automatically thinking of Shrine Maiden, which is a very different category, but I know that a lot of shows tend to interchange them a lot. A samurai-ish character will be from a shrine. And so they'll be dressed up as shrines and they'll do the Shrine Maiden thing. And so you just have to feel those out. Some of them will have the more athletic-ish type character. That's probably going to be the Bokuko. The ones that are more the perfect wife type / character, that will be in the next category. And we'll talk about that in a second. But these are they're very high energy. When it comes down to it, they're probably a little less high energy than, as far as you'll see a higher energy in them. A perfect example is going, and I brought this up. Might as well have just put it down in the list here. I kept bringing it up in the last time we were recording this, which was the girl from Uzumade, the military lady from that one, who is the quote unquote maid. She is a nutcase military nut, and she is this character archetype to a T, literally in every way, shape, or form. Can you look up the name so that I'm not feeling like an idiot?
Uzumade works. Everybody knows who you're talking about if you talk about Uzumade. Okay. There's no other characters in that show besides her, unless you're talking about the one that loves the maid.
Yeah,
Tsubame.
I would put her. Tsubame is the
Tsubame and Midori have a similar amount of their kind of characteristics in that military aspect.
And she is, like I said, to a T. She's the military nut. She's the health nut. She's constantly doing the push-ups just because reasons. She literally can protect you. She can hold her own. She is in every way, shape, or form. It might as well be male, but she is a tomboy and she is actually female. And it's like I said, perfect to a T. I really should have put this down. We also have other examples. We have Tomoyo from Clannad, and I think that you were saying that you felt that she would fit better in another group, or was that the sister?
She's technically classified by a lot of people in being the Kudere area.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, she's tomboy too. I mean, it perfectly fits her as well.
Another one we have.
She's the one where everybody's freaking out about the biker gangs coming into the school, and she goes over there and drop kicks an entire bike and biker ganger.
I also have Minori from Toradora, and I think that she absolutely captures the Bokuko stereotype. I don't know. I think she's more feminine, not feminine. Mostly because she is, like I said, I think that Toradora is well written, and so, like I said before, they're not necessarily going to all fit perfectly. Now, one that
you think... go a lot in the Genki category, too.
Yeah. One that I do think absolutely captures it to a T, but I think it's because it's on purpose, is Kambaru from Monogatari. The reason why I think that she captures it to a T is, like I said, I think she was literally written to do that.
That's what that writer does to those archetypes.
Exactly. I think he does it on purpose.
Now, I think that the appeal to the tomboy, I think, is going to be kind of going into the same category as something we'll get into later, which is the childhood friend. And it's the idea that I think a lot of the tomboys are often kind of put in the category of being just another one of the boys. And I think there is a huge appeal to the tomboy. And it's something that is, again, also echoed in Western media as well, is we like there is an appeal to the tomboy character because they are just another one of the boys. They're somebody you can go out and do things with. They're just, again, another friend that you had that, also is somebody that you can appeal to as well and have a relationship with. So there's an appeal there.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that there is a an attraction to the healthy type character, and this is across all genres. There is an attraction to healthy and somebody who can hold their own. There's no way around that. It is attractive. I mean, that's why you see pictures of supermodels or super healthy guys. There's a reason why that is such an attractiveness. There's an innate instinctual thing inside of all of us that wants the healthy as a quote unquote mate or a love interest, if you want to call it that. Next one is going to go into what is the category from the outside realm is going to be called the Ojo. They also refer to them, like I said earlier, the Shrine Maidens, or I think it's probably better to just point them out as the quote unquote perfect wife. Now, I had to separate this from. It's very, very complicated to understand how this all fits into its thing. This is going to be, for lack of a better term, the last category. This has a balanced emotion standpoint, and has effectively, I'm not going to say no aggression, but they're not aggressive. They will
conflict.
Yeah, they don't add conflict. They are the ones that will diffuse conflict. So it's really an interesting character in general. Now, I have the thing that kind of stands out the most on this character is they're perfect at everything. Now, this comes with a caveat. Okay, there's always going to be their thing per se, and this will probably go into their how do you break a perfect wife? Well, you show them what they're not good at, and that's the thing that's kind of silly about them is they are good at literally everything. And the best example is they're good at cooking. So they'll be graceful. They'll be good at cooking. They'll do this. But, oh yeah, by the way, they're a guy. There's always something. That is what makes this particular archetype what it is they'll be good at athletics. They'll be good at, they'll be graceful. They'll be, absolutely gorgeous. And oh yeah, by the way, they can't cook. There's always going to be one thing, and that's their weakness. So when you, like we were mentioning earlier with the tsundere, how do you break a tsundere? You make them feel insecure and become, not insecure, but make them feel feminine. How do you break a kudere? Make them feel insecure when they're overly confident. How do you break a dandere? You make them feel confident. Always their opposite. This one is kind of the same way. They're good at everything. So how do you break a perfect wife? You make them see the thing that they can't do perfectly. And so it's an interesting aspect as well. Is they're literally good at everything except for one thing. And that's always going to be their flaw, and they're going to harp on that flaw.
Yeah, which is not always a insanely bad thing, and in often cases it's just something that gives them character, gives them something kind of a quirk that adds a little bit more to their personality. It's not necessarily it has to be a horrible thing.
No, not necessarily. it'll just be their joke, whatever it is. I've got, as far as examples, I've got Yui Yugihama, but she's perfect every way.
I will
only
point
flaw,
out that Chris put this in the list. I didn't.
The only flaw that she had was that somebody didn't choose her for whatever daggum reason, and we hate that person.
Yeah, pretty much. Not necessarily that's her fault. It's not her flaw.
It's not her.
It's
not her fault.
It's somebody else's flaw. It's somebody else's flaw.
Somebody else's idiocy. All right, so the next one I've got is Megumi Todokoro from Food Wars. I think she's absolutely perfect waifu. I think if I was to say what her quote-unquote flaw would be her insecurity. So, but she to me fits a lot of the other categories, but it doesn't really matter. It's my list. I can make my list however I want. Next one
I like that you've added two of my favorite waifus in your list.
Yeah, because that's they're perfect waifus to me. And the last one I've got is Saber from Fate Stay. I think that she fits best in this category of perfect wife. She's got the gracefulness. She's got the calm demeanor. She's good at quote unquote diffusing situations, and she can hold her own. So she's perfect in every way, shape, or form.
Diffusing situations, pulling out a sword.
I know. I thought of that as well, but she
diffuse situation, Excalibur.
If I was to say she had a flaw, I think that her flaw would probably.
There's no flaws. It's all right. You don't have to dig. You don't have to dig, Chris.
She can't cook. But I even think that she technically can cook. She just doesn't. She didn't have to because of Shiro.
She just doesn't. I don't think I've ever seen her try to cook. What are you talking about? Yeah, Shiro would do it. Wouldn't let her.
She's definitely a better. She's definitely a better waifu than the stupid teacher.
Sakura, yeah, I know.
Leave my Sakura alone.
I don't have a problem with Sakura, honestly. I just like to tease Chris.
All right, so now that we're done with my big old weird complicated circle that I call the circle of archetypes, let's go into traits. And because I think that this is where I think people get really confused, and this is what Andrew was kind of joking just before we started recording. He's like, "What the heck is a neko? What did you call nekodere?" And I was like,
"Nyankodere, nyandere." That's right, nyandere.
Nyandere. And it's like, you people are just stretching at this point. Stop trying. And I piped up and I said, I know they come up with stupid things just to cover all bases. You guys are separate, trying to make a category out of a trait. You don't have to make a category out of a trait. And this is, you'll start to understand what I'm talking about as I go down this list. Childhood friend, nobody calls a childhood friend an archetype. Why? Because it's a trait. It's not necessarily an archetype. And there's other ones down the list. A kamidere. It's just a god. It's going to be an archetype of something else. So you'll find that there is a difference between a trait and an archetype. So the first trait I've got is, this is actually two different traits, but they're very, very close together. And hopefully you'll understand the separation and how they fit together as I go through this. So my first one is, of course, childhood friend. Now, a childhood friend is one that, and one of Andrew's favorites, of course, and I do admit that there is a charm that is only childhood friend can have. It works for me mostly because of the underdog aspect. The which
you acknowledge it by saying that. You acknowledge the flawness of the childhood friend in anime just by saying that. I appreciate that you support me in the fact that childhood friends never win.
I do love childhood friends. They do. They hurt me in a lot of cases. Yu Gahama is one of my favorite characters, and I literally dumped that show specifically because I didn't want to see her hurt anymore. I
wouldn't
acknowledge
technically
that
classify her as a childhood friend. I don't think you can classify her as a childhood friend.
I think that they were using that. You're right. She really kind of wasn't, but she was.
She fits the personality for
mold.
sure.
She was absolutely fitting that mold. She only had a year or two on the other girl, whatever her name was. And she did tie herself into him, and she was patient. And that's what we're going into is what distinguishes a childhood friend. They're the ones as they tug at the heartstrings as the perfect wife that can't be seen. They're too slow to the race, and so therefore they are missing the goal. And what we mean by that is they're the ones that really what it comes down to is you'll be introduced to the main character. The main character will bump into the new thing. It doesn't matter what it is. It's the new thing, i.e., in Sakura Shao. You meet the new character who is she's a kudere, can't take care of herself. It's something that tugged at all of these internal things for the main character. Then introduce childhood friend. That childhood friend suddenly realizes she's losing out on her love interest. Then suddenly jumps into the race, while the new novel thing has already gotten through like halfway through the race when the childhood friend suddenly realizes I'm losing my thing, and it's already halfway gone. And so she jumps in, starts trying to make her case, and it's already too late. She's already lost the race.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, they do play off the aspect of they don't want to stir the pot. They want things to stay the way they are, and if they step in there, it's going to change everything, and they could possibly lose what they had. And there's that fear is what they usually always play off of, and it's always when, oh, well, if I don't do something now, somebody else is going to do exactly that, and I'm no longer going to be able to see him, and that's when it becomes a problem. But the issue always does come in the idea that they wait a little bit too long, and unfortunately, story's not going to introduce a new, bam, beautiful cover art character, and it suddenly be something that's not chosen in the end. It's always the cover art character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we want to get into it? Nanami from Sakura Sao. Let's get into another one here. We have Nana from Golden Time. What else do we want to do? Another one? Childhood friends always lose. Do we want to do more?
Nana was the one that hurt me the most. I absolutely loved her, and she was
so bad. I hate that. Like every time it happens too, it makes it. Anyways, stop it, stop it.
Well, and even that one. When I got
away.
Andrew, huh?
I'm walking away. I don't care anymore. I don't want to talk about this no more.
And when I brought it up to Andrew, it was like I could go both ways, but it still hurts because I really, really did love Nana. I really, really did. And that's a lot of the frustration with the childhood friends. When it comes down to it, it's the character that is so perfect. They're so perfect in every way, shape, or form, and they're like because in a lot of cases, I think that what it is they mold, if they're well written, they mold themselves around the main character. And so they have the most, they know, and this is the thing that makes them so well done is they know you better than you know yourself. They are the ones who are so close yet so far. They're in every way, shape, or form, they're perfect for the main character because they know the main character.
Oh wait, a childhood friend did win here recently.
Seems
it
like
wasn't. It wasn't a female character that was a childhood friend. It was the other way around. But Savage Season. Anyways, sorry.
Okay, so
I don't want to talk about this anymore. So you can continue.
Now, this is one, like I said, this one also goes into another one. And this one is a little bit more complicated to explain, but to me, they are literally the same trait. The only difference is you add the forbidden fruit aspect, and that is incest. This is usually the Imoto or the big sister or the on the other side it'll be the Ototo or the Oni-chan. Adding this category, to me it is the same thing as the childhood friend aspect. Now, there's a lot of caveats involved in there. I know that not all of them fit in the same category. Some of them will be super tsunderes or whatever have you. But here's the trick. They are literally still closer than everybody else because literally in most cases they've been living with you your entire life. They're technically closer than a childhood friend. And like I said, you're adding on top of that the forbidden fruit aspect. So it's such a, to me it's just a branch off of the childhood friend. Yeah, there's some that'll use the we're not really related. We're actually
they always use that
married into each other or what have you. So there's always the ways to around the rules.
There's always episode 8 where they decide to suddenly open up the scene with the vision of when they were young and the new dad walked in the door holding the hand of the sister. It's always episode 8. By the way, new contender arrives. No, and I do agree with the idea that it does have that feeling of being similar to childhood friend. I wouldn't really call it forbidden fruit, more just the taboo.
Yeah,
I call it taboo. It's the idea that you have somebody that knows you more than better than yourself, and I think that is the marketing appeal. It is similar to the childhood friend, where it is this person that knows you through and through. You're super comfortable with them. Often with the main character, they're able to divulge anything. They feel like they can, confine anything in them. They can tell them their deepest secrets because they're almost like an extension to them. And I guess the struggle that comes in with the idea, the childhood friend seems more acceptable to a broader audience. The idea, okay, this is cute, this is romantic. The idea of them always being together and finally finding love in each other. Taking that step further to becoming lifelong mates rather than just childhood friends. But yeah, of course, the incest does kind of go in the category of something that's a little more difficult to sell to a broader audience, but there is a definite market for it. And the argument always comes from a lot of people is that anybody that is into siscon obviously does not have a sister. And I do technically agree with that, but I also see the other side of it in the idea that, and granted, my experience with it's more in the idea of, just having close friends, people living with us at some point that did have, daughters and stuff. And there was an appeal there, even though we did kind of see each other as brother and sister. There's still, human nature in play, and you still have attractions that come into play. I think it probably would be different for somebody that knows, that has been related to somebody longer than they can actually remember. I think that's probably a completely different category. But again, it does technically play off the same attributes as childhood friends, like you said. And I think that is what the broader market appeal is, plus the idea that, they're almost an extension of each other.
I acknowledge that it's actually a really niche market. It's there. You will find it. If you really wanted to, I'm not going to say Google it. I mean, that is so cliche to say, but if you go on to your anime list and click the incest, it's there. It's something that is literally in our fandom. And so if you haven't bumped into it, I'm surprised more than anything. But the funny thing is it's usually innuendo in a lot of cases. It's rarely actually, Origamo is probably the most well-known, best example of it. One that happened just a couple of seasons ago. It was my sister is an artist or something like that, which was done by the same guy who did Orimo, wasn't it? And
yeah,
it's something in our fandom. And obviously the market is enough that it gets done quite a bit.
And I think the other reason why the incest aspect actually works so well, and I think it's something why they play off of the siscon brocon thing in anime so much, is just because it also, in most cases when they do portray the sister or the brother, they portray them similarly to our other archetypes that we talked about, was that almost the yandere without being overly, crossing the line. I would honestly say the siscon and the brocon thing is the yandere of nonviolence. So you do have that little sister that's super, like, they'll let them do anything to them. I mean, we have every example of the hidden dungeon only I can enter. It's that idea of that sister that absolutely loves the main character, or that brother that absolutely loves the main character, to the point where they'll let them get away with anything. And I think they play off that same feature.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So the next one we've got is the trap, and it's a fun one. Me and Andrew, we love the trap characters. They're usually one that, the best way to explain it for me, okay, this is my delving into anime and bumping into these characters in a lot of cases. I've even gone down the gender bending rabbit hole. I really, really love these characters. They're so much fun. I thought you were going to
say Futa or something.
Maybe.
I've even gone to Futa. Who hasn't looked up the Futas?
So why? It's an interesting to try and kind of quantify why these characters work so well. And the best I've come up with is that whatever archetype you choose, pick an archetype, take that and put it to the most extreme. So whatever, let's say the perfect wife. Make it the most perfect wife. And then like I had mentioned when we were talking about the perfect wife archetype, and just so happens it's a guy. That would be its quote unquote flaw, but it also leans into what this is, where it is the perfect wife, but it'll be the most perfect wife. It'll be the dandere, but it'll be the most dandere. So, what it does is it'll take whatever your quote unquote archetype preference is, and it'll make it the most. So you've got that extra on top of it. So you'll find your tsundere, and it'll be the best tsundere you've ever seen, but it's a guy. So it'll make it to where like Twin Tails. I think Twin Tails was a perfect example of this. Of the best Twin Tail in that show was the quote unquote trap character, and that's how they'll play with it. Is they'll make it the best of whatever you want, whatever it is. If you want a kudere, it'll be the best kudere you've ever heard or you've ever seen. It's just a guy. And that's how they play with it. What they do is it'll be either the overly submissive, it'll be the most feminine, it'll be in the flip, for those of you who are seeing it from the other side of it, for the josei side, it'll be a beautiful, gallant man, or and just so happens that it's secretly a woman. They toy with everything that you love to the extreme and then flip it on its head.
The odd thing with the flip side, with like, you know, female characters being more being presented as boys, it seems like they don't really hide it. They just seems very more sort of like they're the prince of the school, and it's pretty obvious that it's a girl. It is odd that they don't really hide it as much as they do with the opposite.
Right. I won't argue with that. I mean, half the time.
Let's be honest. The reason why the trap works so well is because our favorite seiyus are voicing them, and they're always female seiyus. You never have trap characters that are voiced by males. Of course, technically, a lot of young male characters in general are voiced by female seiyus, but let's not go down that tangent.
Because the guys can't pull it off at all. If you've ever heard the and this is me going,
well, it's prepubescent kind of aspect. Let's be honest.
me saying this from a purist, I will acknowledge, guys can't do young guys.
Yeah, it's a prepubescent thing.
But that's just in general, guys can't do that. But yeah. So
after the voice breaks, it's hard to cover it anymore. But no, so I think the appeal of it is hard to really, I guess, categorize why the trap works so well. And I guess you do make a good point in the idea that you can make the argument that they are the extreme, but when I try to think of my favorite traps, that's not the case. Like, I love Fetish from ReZero. Felix Fetish is... we haven't even given enough time to actually appeal to something like that. But yeah, you technically do have a pretty Genki character, very cheerfully. Love it. I mean, he's not Neko. Technically, Neko Mimi is technically probably a lot of it.
Yeah. But he's not that super... Because he's a super, I said he's a super Genki, but he's not Genki in the extreme, like I said, where it starts to turn me off, and that would be, but I think he comes off as. I
mean, that technically makes sense because my other example would be Astolfo, and that's technically another Genki.
Yeah, and I mean, like we said before, well written. I mean, I just say that because that's the only way that I can explain it. Is I don't want to just say that it's only the only reason that they work is because they're overly submissive. And they're not. They're not. There is the forbidden fruit aspect to it. Yes, they're very feminine. So you will see. Those are the two things that you will see the most. Is they're very submissive and they're extremely feminine, and that is kind of the thing of like it's in a way it pushes those masculine buttons that should be in most guys that makes you want to. I want that. I want to make that mine. And that's really what it's trying to bring out of you. That why is the like I'd mentioned earlier, the soulless doll. What makes a soulless doll the most attractive is you can get away with anything. What does that do in most guys? It pushes the button of I want to make that mine. Why do guys like big car or strong cars? Because I want that. I want it. I want to make it mine. Something that is powerful and strong. So, my next category is going to be, we're going to go into 3 categories or 3 traits that I fully acknowledge what these kind of are is they are... This is going into the Fujoshi group. They tend to bring these into the categories a lot. I noticed them over there, and I seen a lot of the same traits on the guy's side. They just tend to not be as acknowledged as much, because while there is shipping on our side, it tends not to be as done as is done in the Fujoshi crowd. And so these terms are not usually used as much on our side. They're all three effectively S&M terms. They are, you have your top, your bottom, and your switch. Now, the top is, of course, your dominant. In Japanese terms, is a seme, or to attack. These are your pushy characters. They tend to take the lead. They are your they're great for submissive, indecisive characters that need direction of some sort. Now, understand, I am making references, and you will hear a lot of similarities. They're very, very bad for assertive, headstrong characters. These are the characters that will shift towards rivals in a lot of cases. So if you have a top and you have another character who is very headstrong, if the two of these butt heads a couple of times, eventually they will shift into a rival type character. Now, that doesn't take away, they won't stop being a dominant or a top just because these two have become rivals. They just become a different type of rival. Now, when I said earlier, you'll notice a commonality. This is where I find a very interesting tidbit. And I started readjusting the way I did my quote-unquote circle of archetypes, mostly because of this interplay. When you have a highly aggressive character, they tend to be a top or a dominant. And those are the characters that you will see as the characters who take over the scene. Anytime they're in a scene, they're the ones who are taking over the scene. Now, understand, Switch is coming in a couple of seconds, so don't just automatically throw everything I'm saying out the window because you one time seen a Genki character as a bottom. I understand, and I will get to that. So, that is pretty much the top and dominance. Now, what is attractive about these characters is usually because you have another character that is a submissive to go with them, but they're like I said, they're the ones that take over the scene. You almost can't ignore them. Like I said before, your most dominant characters are usually, like I said, the Bokukos, the Genkis, the Tsunderes, the Yanderes, the perfect wife, I would probably say as well. Anything on those kind of five. Now that's fully acknowledging that Yandere and perfect wife can flip the other way and go into the submissive. Understand, I am making a distinction on switches. But these are the ones that are the hardest to see, Genki being the absolute hardest to see as the submissive. That's not impossible, it's just the hardest to see that. Am I losing you yet? You're being quiet.
Every time you bring up top bottoms and stuff, you lose me. Not really that I don't understand it, it's just that it's never been a topic I've ever been fond of, so.
I gotcha.
Me and my Fujoshis, you know.
It's just an interesting, it's an interesting character.
I mean, it's technically one of those things kind of similar where you talked about earlier where you're overanalyzing. Not really, I'm not saying that you're overanalyzing. It's a bad thing. It's just one of those things where it is one of those things where, yeah, I guess technically that does make sense that there's this idea that one has to be dominant over the other. But it's also one of those things where it's like, I don't understand why people have to turn it into like this big, complicated thing when it's like, one's just on top of the other. Why do we have to make this into a whole thing? I've never understood it.
Well,
and I never understood why Chris gets so into it.
Because it's a mechanic. And it's not necessarily
sure,
you're not going to,
but you don't have to get too into it. I mean, you get more into top and bottom than you get into things like tsunderes and stuff.
Well, and that's only mostly because that explains the switch. I think that tsundere, like I said earlier, what makes a tsundere is they are one of the best switches, because they're the most obvious switch. And let me get the bottom real quick, because I don't want to get into switch too fast. Bottoms are literally the submissives. The in the term is uke is to receive. Now, they're kind of their thing is they accept just about anything. They're too innocent, too trusting. That like I said earlier, they fit into the danderes in a lot of cases the best. They're great supporters for just about anybody. If you have any amount of assertiveness, they're wonderful supports for you. They do not work well with other submissives, mostly because two submissives, it's the blind leading the blind. Who's taking the lead? Nobody knows where they're going, so it might as well just take it. They are...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Two bottoms just is spooning. Two bottoms is just spooning.
All right. Now, let me go ahead and just go right into the Switch, because I think the Switch is probably the one that really kind of makes this make sense. They're the ones that are they can go either way. And they're the ones that that makes the most sense out of the top and bottom. The top and bottom is literally as simple as it is. One is on top and one is on bottom. Like Andrew said, you don't really, I'm making it overly complicated because, like I said, it's interesting to see
acknowledging it.
It's interesting to see the mechanics. It really is. And it's not necessarily that that any of this really even matters when it comes down to it. It's just interesting to see the mechanics. And the Switch is the most interesting as the fact of, like I said earlier, the tsundere break. It's how do you make a super aggressive, flying off the wall character turn into a dandere? How does a dandere top a tsundere? It's impossible if you take their archetypes at face value. But what did I say? A dandere can become the most confident character, and a tsundere can become the most submissive character. Now, when that happens, you're going to have a tsundere on top of a dandere on top of a tsundere, and that doesn't make any sense if you take their character types at face value. How does Sasuke and Naruto, who is the top and who's the bottom? Technically,
Naruto's top.
Huh?
Naruto's top.
If you take
It's
them
whatever the writer wants. That's the whole problem with this whole thing.
It's whoever writes the fan fiction.
Sasuke obviously looks like Sasuke obviously looks like he would be the most dominant. He's edgy. He's edgelord basically, and Naruto looks like a big teddy bear. But then it always turns into the idea that once they get into that other room, which one's gonna suddenly go, yeah, actually, I know what to do here, and then Sasuke's like, oh wait, no, blush.
Yeah, it's literally whoever the fan fiction writer wants it to be. But it's funny because both of them have quote unquote, and this is why they ended up being rivals when it comes down to it, because Sasuke is technically a kudere, and Naruto would be Genki. So the two of them. And both of them have tsundere. Well, Sasuke has more tsundere qualities than Naruto does. So it does. He does have a break spot, and Naruto, I don't know that he would necessarily have. He definitely would have an insecure side. So both of them could do it. It doesn't matter. It's a joke. I'm taking the joke too far. But anyway, the sad thing about this is it's not done very often, mostly because the switch is not done very often, mostly because it adds a level of complexity that it's easy to write a sun that breaks into a dere. That's easy to write. However, writing an actual switch is extremely difficult because of its complexity. There is nuance here that, for the most part, you would have to think of a lot of emotional interests that are, for most characters, especially side characters, it's just too much to write. It's easier to just write an aggressive tsundere and yeah, she blushes once and then be done with it. It's a whole nother level to actually write a character that is literally able to have a fleshed out, complex, emotional movement back and forth of, one day they are doing this and there's a reason for it, and then the next day they're changing their personality. I think that probably one of the best well-written tsunderes is going to probably be Vegeta. And me and Andrew have gone into depth of why he is probably one of the most complex characters and most well-written characters in Dragon Ball Z.
Well, again, that goes back to the idea that just having plenty of time to work with.
Yeah, that's true too. Especially since 99% of that show
there's a
is,
lot of yeah, but then again, there's a lot of shonen shows that don't really give their characters much development and have plenty of time to work with. So I'd argue, and I'm going to probably get a lot of heat for this, I'd argue that Naruto has very little character development in all of the Naruto that I watched, which was almost the end of Shippuden.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I got very frustrated with Sasuke at a certain point. It seemed like
Sasuke has plenty of change.
He does, but he
in what I've watched again.
Yeah, his problem is that he never stuck to his convictions. He had a bad habit of falling back on his convictions. So he would learn something in his conflict with Naruto, but then he'd go back on it. A lot of cases. It was like, why are you going back on this? Huh?
Stubbornness.
Yes, out of just pure stubbornness. All right, so now that all of the quote-unquote traits are done, I have this separated as just basically quirks. And the reason why is because they're not necessarily character defining. They are more along the lines of just things that are
add-ons.
They're add-ons.
As you're creating your waifu and husbando, you have them put in the shopping cart. There's always that thing at the bottom that says, "Hey, did you forget something? Click here to add Nekomimi ears. Click here to add robot."
Yes, very much so. So these are special quirks. Kendra had already mentioned animal ears. These are in Japanese, this is kimono mimi, and our resident kimono mimi guy, Seismic, who has come back. Hey, he loves kimono mimi, and they are very, very attractive in a lot of cases, and definitely one of my favorites.
Most underplayed.
Yes.
I mean, that's similar to heterochromia, or like the two things. Well, I understand that heterochromia is more a less of a pill than, I enjoy it, but I know doesn't have mass appeal. But cat ears, animal ears, fox ears, animal girls seems like the most underplayed thing that I think, like, I mean, most people have heard the joke of one of the greatest things that's come out of Japan is cat girls, and it's like, well, why don't you have enough? Like, literally, the very few shows have cat girls in it. I mean, there is a show, Cat Planet Cuties, but it's like, yeah, Felix and ReZero, there's very rare cases of it actually being in shows. It has to be a fantasy show, and then even fantasy shows very rarely have them. It's shocking. It is one to the point where I'm like, I love Jobless Reincarnation so much because they literally have a manner where the owner literally brings in servants that are all beast people. I'm like, this guy knows me.
I just thought of this, and I'm going to throw it out there as a possible explanation. Maybe the reason there's not a lot of heterochromia is because manga is usually black and white.
That is true. Very true.
I've never really thought about that because you saying that there's not a lot of heterochromia. I bet you the reason why is because it doesn't work well on black and white pages. And maybe there's a lot more of them and we just don't know.
I mean, most traits are technically only portrayed in the actual cover art where it's actually colored, but at the same time, it is the one that I would think if you had one that was darker shaded and one was like lighter shaded, it kind of looks weird. Rather than it being the actual colors themselves. A good point.
Next one.
I thought you were going to give a good solid reason for why there's not enough animal ears. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, I don't think that
you can't. I mean, one of the most, like, if you ask most people what their waifu is, their top waifu of all time, I think the one that you will see, like, everybody gives their top 10 list. If you were to take hundreds of thousands of anime viewers and ask them their top 10 lists, I bet you the one that will end up in the most lists, Holo.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why don't you people bank on this stuff? I don't understand it. I would imagine just because it's more in the idea that it typically breaks, because most anime is slice of life, and if you put a Neko girl or something in there, it's not going to be very much slice of life at that point. That's why I think there was a huge surge at some point with the shrine spirit, the fox spirit coming from the shrines. That's one way to get around it. But in most cases, it typically has to be in fantasy setting, which doesn't make sense at this point because there's so many shows that are isekai. You would think there would be tons of cat girls and animal-eared characters, but it's just not. But yeah. I can't go with you on the next one, though.
The next one that goes right, Kimi no Mimi goes right into, is Mon Musume, which is pretty much Monster Girlfriend. They are, I acknowledge there is okay, let me put it this way. I acknowledge that this exists. I only go down that road to a certain point, and it's I can see the fetishism. I don't particularly buy it, especially because it goes real far down that road, and I definitely don't follow some of that. You get into vor and all that garbage, and it's like, yeah, y'all can keep that one to yourselves. I don't get that at all.
I think it technically falls in the same fetishism of furries, and that's my whole thing. Is like I love cat girls, I love fox girls, all that kind of stuff, but it's always restricted to ears and tail. The moment you get like fur going on and stuff like that, that's when it kind of starts getting into the territory of furries, which I don't really get into. And I think that's similar to the Monster Musume thing, is in often cases it's when it goes into that, too many characteristics of it that it's no longer humanoid. That's when it loses me. Centaur Girl loses me because half of her body is literally a horse, and I don't go by horses and go, man, look at that horse. Let me slap that. No, and it's not my thing.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is I can get it to a point. What ends up happening is it starts. Like I said, it goes down. There's some point, and I don't know exactly where it is. Like I can go with the kitsune, some of those other ones where now you're just the tail thing is getting kind of fun. I get a kick out of the nine tails fox kitsune thing. I get a kick out of that. Like you're talking about with the centaur, because there's something about that line where you go from the anthropological, whatever you want to call it, where it's just a monster that looks like a girl, and you go past that line where it's okay, the line starts getting blurry. Then you're going into the fetishism. And this is where it gets really, really...
Well, that's the thing, because like whenever you look at any Monster Girl show, like, you know, Interview with Monster Girl, not necessarily Interview with Monster Girl, that was like a rare case where they didn't get that far into it. Monster Musume and the Monster Girl Doctor, like in most cases with that stuff, it literally is getting into the fetishism. Like that is the focal point of the show, is going, look at these scales. Let's lift it up and look really close to it. So it's obviously what it's going for.
And that's what I was getting ready to explain is that line at some point it shifts, and and you don't even see the blurring. It goes from there. Okay, you have these little dinks. Okay, you like that? Here, let me show you this, and it goes right straight into vor. And it's like, what the heck where did we go here? I mean, even the Spider Girl. The Spider Girl is, I get the bondage thing. I don't get the I want. No. No, you're have you
big abdomen?
Have you even looked into vor?
Not sure off the top of my head if what exactly it would be.
This is what I don't get, because it goes right straight from you like a little bit of a couple of scales on your girl. Well, here, let me go ahead and show you vor, which is basically being swallowed or being digested. I don't get it. I even the Spider Girl, I can get the bondage. Okay, I'm not particularly into bondage, but I don't necessarily. I like I said, I obviously have gone down the S&M road, because of certain specific manga. I did go down that road. I seen it. I understand it a lot more than I did 5 or 6, 10 years ago. I didn't understand it then. I do now. So even the Spider Girls, I can get it to a point. I don't get the digested part. I don't get. I was like, why would you, even if you go down the succubus road? Okay, the next two categories, one is angels. I think the angels thing, like we had kind of mentioned last time we did this recording, was I kind of get the high and mighty. You're on top of me, and you are justified in stomping on me, and I have nothing that I can gain from you. The demons.
Well, it's also the defiling. I think there is an element, kind of like the Shrine Maiden thing. There is an element of the appeal to the market is the idea of being the one that will possibly defile that.
Yeah, and I do agree with that.
But I think there is an angelic beauty to it as well, the purity and angelic beauty, that is a huge appeal as well. I think that with the angelic, I think there is definitely two very different appealing markets, and one is the appeal to a purity and almost a Shrine Maiden thing, something that's higher than you that you just want to beautify and worship. But I also think there's the idea of the ones that just, they like the idea of that purity for the sake of being the one that would defile it.
Yeah. And then going into demons, which would go right into what I was talking about with the Monster Girlfriend thing, is even demons, I get to a certain point. Usually the is it worth it for your life? And that goes right straight into the succubus. The demons, there's the beauty in the evil. You have both the evil, the femme fatale thing of yes, you're beautiful. We've got that new character from Resident Evil. I almost to a T think that's her, of the demon that can destroy you. But you'll have a big old smile on your face while she's destroying you. So yes, I can kind of see it. I can't follow you down that road. And the succubus, maybe I can almost do that one with you. Is the ultimate mind-blowing pleasure. I can get it. Even that makes sense compared to the like I was saying again a second ago, the femme fatale, the being destroyed, like we were talking about with Yandere. That's the same problem of, I can see it to a point, but once you get past that line is the whole playing with fire thing of, I don't know that I can follow you down. Like you were saying before, is I can see it, but why? Why?
It's just one of the most polarizing aspects for sure. Like a lot of people that are, don't like kuderes can see why people like kuderes. People that don't like, yanderes can see why people don't like yanderes. Whereas I think with the monster moons and all that kind of stuff, it kind of gets in that territory of like, whoa, it's harder to understand. You had to be there. You had to be there.
You had to be there.
It's the had to be there category.
All right, so
which is similar to furries. It's like, it's not that I have anything wrong against people that are furries. It's just it's not. It's you had to be there. I'm not in that category. You do you kind of thing.
Yeah, but I can see fur, but then we're going right back into what we were saying earlier of the more human-like, maybe, but when you start going into actual animal thing, I don't get. I don't. But at the same time, it's like, I guess I don't know. Robots. I mean, I can get robots per se, but that's,
we kind of covered that on the Soulless
Doll. Rich girl, same is very similar to the angels, where you want to see something high and mighty being brought down. And it's not necessarily,
it's the forbidden fruit. You got to avoid the dad. Avoid the rich dad that can make you disappear.
And we're
playing with fire.
Being very, very, very specific. I know that I'm going more along the lines of the most extreme version of attraction. What is the most extreme version of the attraction? Rich girl is it's a rich girl. I mean, when it comes down to it, the girl who can take care of you for forever. I still, to me, I always automatically assume rich girl is going to be oh ho ho. If that one is burned into my head, it's always been that way. But or the girl who's trying to pretend to be the rich girl, she's the oh ho ho type character.
Gokienyo.
Yes. Next trait is going to be hairstyles. Now, the two I've got off the top of my head, and there's gobs of them. There's the boy cut, the bob hair, the
ringlets.
Main two, ringlets and twin tails or curls. Those are the main two that off the top of my head that I thought of and put down here. But like I said, there's all kinds of them. But yes, hairstyles are going to be a trait just as much as anything else. And the funny thing is that people just tend to latch onto hairstyles mostly because they are the thing that distinguishes your character probably the most. Hair colors is very similar.
No, I think there's an argument to be made that a lot of the hair types, and I think you mentioned before, color types is something that is often kind of connected to archetypes as well, as they'll try to make all the blonde twin tails be tsundere. And so it is kind of a troubling thing that it's not necessarily that if you see that it is going to be the reason why you like that character. It's just often cases that is on the characters that you typically do like. So it is a funny thing, though, that I often find myself... It is an odd thing that I like certain hair types in anime characters that I don't necessarily like in the real world. Like, I don't necessarily like short hair. I don't like pigtails, twin tails, none of that in the real life, but I for some reason really like it on the anime characters.
Well, it's funny because when you stop and think about it, and I did do that kind of research thing a long time ago as far as the hair colors and how they intertwine with character personalities. And it's a thing that's out there on the internet, and all I did was I just found it and I just dug into it and I just had a lot of fun with it. The funny thing is the more traits you start ticking off, the faster you can get, you can almost tell the archetype long before you actually ever get to actually seeing the character's personality. Tick off twin tails, tick off blonde, and you're almost 99% you're already thinking of tsunderes. Why? Because that's almost to a T the type of characters that will have blonde twin tails. At the same time, I can list off ringlets. I can list off rich girl. I can list off red hair, and you're almost to a T probably going to lean towards either a tsundere or a perfect waifu or perfect wife type character. But I would probably lean towards perfect wife. I would only say tsundere as kind of a minor because they tend to either go into one of those two categories. Usually as a rival, they tend to be a tsundere. If they're just on the rich girl side, just straight rich girl, they'll just be perfect waifu, and they'll have almost everything to a T, except for they're probably not going to be able to make food because they're rich girl. So it's fun to do that. Blue hair, probably guarantee you it's either kudere or dandere. I would lean towards gray hair, gonna be kudere. Why? I don't know. They just do that. Blue hair, I'll lean towards dandere. Red hair, I'll lean towards probably Genki or Bokuko. And it's fun. When you start digging into the personality traits and that stuff, you get into that. Black hair, Shrine Maiden in a heartbeat. Probably going to be rich girl-esque, or not rich girl, but perfect wife, Ojo type character.
Yeah, black hair is often in the kudere area as well, I think.
Possibly. But it is. Next one I've got as far as traits are going to be Shrine Maiden. And the last one I've got is Goth Lolita. And those are, like I said, they're traits. They're just, that's a lot of frills, just over obnoxious outfits.
Yeah, Goth Lolita is not specifically Goth Lolly. For those that don't know, Goth Lolita is a style. When you say Lolita, it's a style. It's just a very frilly, gothic looking.
Yeah, and it's so funny because when we were recording last time, it slipped out Goth Lolly, and I was like, no, it's not Goth Lolly, it's Gothic Lolita or Goth Lolita, and it is a actual style, very popular, especially in Japan. They absolutely love it, and I do too. I think it is absolutely a gorgeous style as far as how it looks, and that's
for those who don't know, like Kuro Neko from Orimo, she wears when she's not being Angel version, she's wearing Goth Lolita outfit. She's not a lolly, she's just wearing Goth Lolita.
And the Kurumi from Day Day Live does that. That's one of the biggest reasons why I love her. Rory Mercury is another character that Chris goes on and on about. That's the same style.
Yeah,
there.
she's Rory's a very subdued version of it. I would say it's not as frilly as you would see in other cases.
Mm-hmm. Well, Kurumi is absolutely off the chain as far as frilly.
Yeah, she goes crazy with it. Yeah, a little crazy with it. And before I forget, we have one last category that I don't want to... We actually missed it last time we recorded, and I had to get Chris back on the on the phone call just so that we got like, hey, hold on, Chris, get back on, turn the record button. And that category is chest size. It's a thing. It is. If we're going to have an entire podcast talking about marketability and how to create a marketable character and what sells... You could call it whatever you want, and we could do it the other way direction too. For the male characters, it exists as well. It's the abs, how cut they are, how muscle they are. It's the same thing with the waifus. And technically the thighs too. We could talk about thighs as well. Thighs, bums, and chest size. So yeah, I do believe that is a huge marketing value. I mean, it is actual physical attraction. It is an actual thing, and I think anybody denies that is ignoring the fact that, yes, technically, bodies sell. Visual appearance does sell. First impressions of visual appearance does technically sell. And I think they all have their appeal. I think the only one that's technically off-putting to me personally is probably the overly sized chest size. I'm usually kind of in the... If you want my favorite, it'd probably be in the mid to under mid size. But I'm always a fan of the underdog story. Which I think that's why Chris loves. I think we pointed that out last time. Chris is like, yes, flat for life or something like that. And I'm thinking, I know why you like that, Chris. It's technically the underdog story, and you love your underdog stories.
I love my Pitatonkas. I can't deny that. It's a thing that I don't understand why the big chest, and when I say big chest, I mean they're obnoxiously large.
We know why it is an appeal in anime.
No, I don't get it.
If you think about it, technically one of the things that a lot of people joke about in Japan is that there's kind of a lack there of mounds.
Well,
there's a lack of mounds. They don't really have a huge amount of sizing. And so I think that there is a market for it in Japan that they don't see this often and they want to see it.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's more along the lines of...
I don't think it's for us over here, people.
It's one of those things that they're so on the nose about it. They even make fun of it. It's
the mew noises.
So it's almost like they acknowledge that it's a fetish, but at the same time they don't get the fetish, so they make fun of it, and it's like, are they actually marketing? Obviously somebody likes it, otherwise it wouldn't be drawn. Because and I want to make a very, very a major distinction between large-chested women. Okay, I'm fine with that. I understand that. I'm not particularly attracted to it, but I do know it exists. I can acknowledge it. I do acknowledge its reasoning. Okay, and that's a very big distinction. Where I kind of jump ship and say, okay, I'm not following you, just like I was talking about earlier with I can get your fetishism on the monster girls to a point. I jump ship at a certain point where I go, I don't get this. This I don't get. It's the same thing with the chest size. And I would be so bold as to say probably larger rear ends I don't quite get either. There's a certain point where it's like, you might as well just say you like heavy set girls. It's fine. I get it. I'm fine with you liking heavy set girls. I don't quite get the obnoxiously large chest. That I don't get. Where it looks like the entire body mass of the girl is literally 75% chest and 25% body. That's the entire body.
I haven't seen that one. I haven't seen that show.
Well, yeah, I know
my breaking point's typically in the, I don't know, probably 25 to 30% body mass being it.
And I do acknowledge, okay, I'm exaggerating to a point, but that's how obnoxious some of these
75%'s pretty insane, Chris.
I know, and that's the thing is once it gets past what looks like...
You might as well walk with them.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I get it when it's a large... To me, a large-chested woman is like the girl that I always make fun of for having the pockets that pop out of her... Nico, whatever. Sonico. I get her. She's attractive. I don't particularly care.
She just doesn't get her pockets.
Huh?
You just don't get her pockets.
I don't get her pockets. I think she's attractive. I don't particularly care for chests that large.
Yeah, she's kind of the borderline for me. Yeah. She's technically the borderline for me.
Now, she has a friend.
Not that I'm like overly like appealed to it. It's just it's getting there.
She has two friends. One is attractive, and she's just a little bit smaller than Sonico. The other one they'll do the exact same thing. Well, they'll dress her up in the cow outfit, and her chest is massive. And it's like, and even that is tame compared to some of the shows that we've seen. What was the one where the entire cast was just large-chested women? I thought that was the line where I was like,
"Are you talking about Furi from Supersonico? Furi Watanuki?" She's borderline too. I don't think she's that bad. Was she in the show?
I don't think so. I ended up finding her later.
No, okay. I think I know what. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I think. I do believe I think you know what I'm talking about. There was another one that was with Supersonico that was pretty out there. But like I said, it's not necessarily that I'm like don't like it. It's just it's something I don't really go after, and not that I'm and that's appealing to.
And that's what I'm trying to say is there is a distinction between what I'm trying to point out, which is to me Supersonico is I acknowledge her attractivenes. I'm not bashing just having
only because
large
she's
chest.
moe at the same time.
Yes, exactly. As long as she has her pockets poking out, I love her to death. It's not that. I acknowledge large chests. I know that they're attractive. What I don't get is what was the show that we watched and it was way at the beginning. If you can think of it, it was the one with, there she is. What's her name? Pochiko. That she's the one that I'm talking about as far as her friend, where that has that they I tend to see her more with the cow outfits.
Oh, they're definitely going for the thick style for her.
Oh yeah, and even her, she's at least decently.
Yeah, she's still technically in the border.
Yeah, she's still, and she's large, and she's at the point where I'm going, okay, I'm not following you as far as attractiveness, and that's mostly because I just don't go for large chests, and I acknowledge that. Where it goes over the board was the one with the guy who rode the motorcycle, and we talked about it a couple of.
But no, they get crazy with Pochiko though. Look at the Good Smell Company figure of her. That's where they're taking her. That's where it kind of is breaking the mold there. I don't know. I'm stepping away from that one.
And that's the thing I'm trying to point out is there's a point in which it's like you're getting obnoxious.
It defies gravity at some point. It defies physics at some point. That's where it gets,
And that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not opposed to large chests. I'm opposed to being obnoxious. And it's one of those things. It's like
ones where you're wondering if they need to see some kind of physical therapy for it.
Yeah, you definitely need to go to the plastic surgeon. Fix that for yourself. And you probably live a lot more happier life. But that is what it is. But yes, I too tend to lean towards.
But I like thighs too. I'm a thighs and bum person.
Yeah, I'm not on that.
You don't know the thighs? You're not a fan of the thighs and stuff?
No.
Tell your thighs though. You don't like that kind of thighs?
If there is a physical trait, probably lips. I don't know why. Never have. Don't understand it.
That's why I like anime so much. Is they don't accent the lips too much. And I think that's probably why. I guess I'm not a lips person. And whatever a show does, it bugs me.
Andrew's like, why is Chris so on the lip thing? I don't get it. I don't know. It's my thing. I can't tell you why.
A lot of it for me, it definitely, if you go by physical attraction, like I said, under mid chest size. I don't know. I'm not going to go and check cup size numbers to give you exactly. Thighs, little bit of the bum, and smile. A character with a good smile and all that kind of stuff, it just like accents it.
I mean, I do.
Of course, that's me in real life. For me in real life, I am big on smile.
Yeah,
like I'm not as bad enough to be running around looking at like every appearance figure of a person that I see, and just to see if I'm gonna like them. But if they hit me with a good smile, it's like you got me.
And I fully acknowledge it, because when it comes down to it, I mean, I don't really want to say the cliche "I like the eyes" thing, because I mean, what was my biggest thing when I first acknowledged Is the Order a Rabbit? I loved the eyes, but at the same time, I fully acknowledge my body type per se is going to be smaller chested. Not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily have to be flat. I do like flat characters. Doesn't bother me.
Doesn't have to be iron board.
Doesn't have to. I don't care for the big chest, but I don't much care for large rear ends. It's not my thing.
No, I don't like the large rear end thing. I just like it nice and perfectly rounded. I like bulging out.
My character style is petite body. I know that's I tend to fall into a category that can get dangerous very quickly. Trust me, I know. It's very, very scary when I go down the hentai roads where I end up in a lot of cases, and it's like, just leave me alone. Why can't we do this without those? Yeah, be it what it is. Nothing.
It's like ran down a really weird rabbit hole.
Yes.
But no, I mean like a lot of the characters in like Darling the Franxx, some good butts. That's what I'm kind of talking about. I'm not talking about bulging out, just nice roundness to it. If you look up Darling the Franxx, you'll probably find one. A pic. You'll find a pic. I mean, not that you'll find a good butt. Yeah. Anyways, we need to stop. We've already dodged this bullet enough. We're probably already full of them. We think we're dodging it, but we're not.
No, everybody's like, yeah, we all know what you are. Yes.
Yeah.
We followed anime way too long, guys. We really have.
Oh, the perfect example. I'm trying to think of the name here. SSSS Gridman. Yeah. SSSS Gridman. That kind of body type is pretty much in my area. Like everything, thighs and everything. So.
Yeah, she's attractive. Yeah. I would have to say probably between I mean, obviously if I was picking an absolute perfect character in every way as far as physically, it would be between Rory and and Kurumi. Both of those are to a T everything that I as far as a attractive, perfect waifu, it's those two. Perfect in every way.
So yeah, that's is that it? Is that
Probably.
it? It's Wonder Egg Priority Day and ReZero Day, so can't dawdle too long. Got stuff to do.
I don't know. ReZero, if I remember right, ReZero looks like it's leaning towards a conclusion, which is probably going to get silly, crazy.
No, it's nowhere near being done. You mean just this arc?
They've been pushing. This has been the longest reset that we've had so far. We're on.
it's gonna like shatter all expectations and have a reset, and all the last like 15 episodes are gonna be wasted, something like that.
I almost.
I think this really hasn't been 15 episodes. Probably more like 4 or 5.
It's been a while since he's reset.
But that's the thing. It's just revealing backstory, so technically they can reset and be perfectly fine with it.
Yeah, they've had all kinds of
technically nothing's
reset.
been done. So yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. That's the husbando and waifu effect. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this run through of the marketability of the waifu and all the fun stuff there. And yeah, as always, we're at otakuspirit.com. That's where you can go for all of our anime, new and old. Great community forum links top, social media links on the right side, and all that good stuff. And as always, we thank all of our Patreon supporters for supporting us, and we hope you guys would go over to our YouTube channel and support us there as well. Watch some videos, subscribe, and all that kind of stuff. And we thank you guys. Oh yeah, there was one last trait that we forgot to talk about: preggers.
Oh my gosh, I don't even want to.
Thank y'all for watching or listening. Y'all take care.
Oh. I actually just had one of those pop up on my screen. The Pochiko pregnant as all get out. Yes. It's like, oh my gosh, really, guys?
That's what reminded me it. Yeah, that and the burger eaters.
Yeah.